I want to talk about issues and issue solving. So there have always been ways in meetings to set aside things that need to be talked about and decided upon. Most often in the days when we were simply uh, working in a room together, we might have a parking lot somewhere. We might have someone write it down on a pad of paper or a whiteboard or something like that. But in our system, we need to do a lot of work with the type of issues we're talking about. We're trying to accomplish a number of things. So we want to keep track of the things that come up in meetings. Yes. We want to give people a way of putting something somewhere. So it's not living in their head. It's living somewhere on a list. We can think about it, consider it at the right time. We want to make sure that we're working on the most important things. We want to have ways of prioritizing things we work on. And we want to have ways of making sure we're having productive conversations as we work through these issues. All those things are part of the concepts, tools, and disciplines of issues. So there are two in our system. There's two types of issues lists. So we keep track of these things. We want to keep a way for everyone in the organization to take things out of their head. Hey, I noticed something that's wrong. Oh, I have this idea. Gosh, this doesn't seem right. I got questions about this. I want to be able to capture all of those things someplace where we can find it and consider it at the right time, in the right venue for the right with the right people. So we want to make sure we've got a place for all those things. So we needed two different lists. The short-term issues list. This is the list where we are going to capture all the things we need to deal with this quarter to have a successful quarter. And that's our filter for that. We want to make sure that we're not thinking about things for the long term. We're not getting distracted by things that aren't important for right now. Every team, every organization should have quarterly meetings where we set up our rocks, our objectives for the quarter. And we should be very clear about that. And it should take a lot to pry us away from those focuses, those things we're trying to accomplish this quarter. We don't want that to be our standard operating procedure. We want to be able to say, yep, we're going to make a decision, and then we're going to follow through for those 90 days, those 13 weeks, that very brief period of time, and make sure that we can just keep churning on that unless something really dramatic happens. And that might be something that comes up in a short-term issues list. And we work on those issues. We consider those issues in our weekly meetings. That is the forum for making sure we're making progress on things that are most important inside the quarter, and making sure we're getting rid of all the things that might get in the way of us having a successful quarter. So that's what we're going to have. We're going to have short-term issues list that we look at every week on every team in every weekly meeting. Now, there are things that we're going to consider in the future that we're not thinking about right now. And sometimes we'll discover those things during the quarter, right? We'll be working on things and discover that, hey, I want to make sure eventually we talk about this. And that's a good thing to have in our long-term issues list. So the long-term issues list is a place where we're capturing all those things. And quite often, as we start the quarter, we get very optimistic and we'll put things on the short-term list that we think are going to deal with right this quarter. Hey, we got to solve this problem this quarter. And then somewhere a couple of weeks in, we realize, you know what? There's no way we're getting to that this quarter. Let's move it to the long-term issues list. And that's a great motion to have because it helps anything that helps us maintain focus and keeps our attention on the things that are most urgent and important is a positive thing. So it's also, we're going to preparing for our quarter. Also, we're going to be preparing for our quarters. Every quarter, we should spend some time getting ready to collaborate together and focusing on what's going to be most important for the next 90 days. And during that meeting, during that quarterly meeting, which also can be an annual meeting, so we think about 3 quarters and 1 annual every year. That's a good time for us, as we're preparing for that, to start adding things to the long-term issues list. These are the things that we're dealing with in the future, not this quarter. So as we're preparing for that next quarter, those things should become something in our long-term issues list. And then anything that's beyond this quarter, that's where that all goes. In the long-term issue list, anything that we're not talking about for right now is a long-term issue. And this is also where we're going to start developing what we call our rock candidates. Everyone in the organization should eventually have a rock or 3, 5, but probably not more than 5 every quarter, things they're working on to build and fix things. that is where we develop the candidates for those so that we're considering them at that time in the quarterly or annual meeting where we're setting up our objectives for the next quarter. It's also a good place to put things when you want to make candidates for the annual plan, also in the annual planning, but don't worry about that. So like really about anything for the future, anything about not about this quarter, we're putting it in the long-term issues list. And the next quarter begins in that meeting, in that quarterly meeting, when we're setting the next rocks. That's where we're going to look at that. So we're not looking at the short-term issues list in the quarterly. And that's why we also, when you get instructions for how to prepare for the quarterly, we're going to move things that may be still in the short-term issues list. We'll move more to the long-term list because there's no more quarter left. So we were wrong. We're not going to deal with those things in this quarter, and we should move them back into the long-term issues list. And if we find time to deal with them, then in that quarterly, then that's the urgent important stuff. But we still want to not lose the things that are maybe important for us in the long-term future, especially if you've got a classic visionary in the organization. That visionary is probably going to have a million ideas. Gino Wickman used to say that 20 ideas in every meeting, of which one of them is probably good. But the 20 ideas, we want a place for those 20 ideas to go so that we can add things to them and understand them and prioritize them appropriately with the team involved and the long-term issues where that's going to be. All right. So those are the two lists: short-term issues list, long-term issues list. And the other part about this, we have our list. We've been adding to it on a regular basis. And we want to basically, this is the process we're going to use for managing that list. We're going to rank all those issues. So in 90, we established a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 ranking. You can come up with your own ranking, but I'm giving you some suggestions on how we think is a good model to start with anyway. We're going to follow a process for solving or addressing those issues. 90 calls it RDR. And I'll explain the acronyms. There's also IDS and CDS. There's a number of acronyms around, but it's basically a way of raising the issue, discussing it, and then resolving it. That's what RDR is: raising the issue, discussing it, and resolving it. And we want to have a very orderly way of doing this because we don't classically have a great way of solving problems in meetings. We have a great way of talking about things and jabbering on about them, but we're not necessarily doing a great job of getting to resolution. And that's really our goal. At the end of the RDR process, that's how we're going to get to rocks. That's how we're going to get to to-dos and make decisions and follow through on those decisions and have a way of getting to them. And then one of the magic of having a list like this is that the unresolved stuff doesn't go away. And that's part of the psychology of having an issues list, is that, hey, just because we didn't talk about today, my friend, doesn't mean we're never going to talk about it. That's what we want everyone to know, is that we will consider it at some time if it still remains applicable in some future date, right? But we're just going to work on the things that we think are most important. All of us together, making decisions together. What's the most urgent, important things to work on? Those are things we're going to focus on. The other stuff, we'll get to it when we can, but we're not losing it in the long run. So I want to make this proposal for the way we rank the issues in the issues list. As I said, the software in 90 gives us 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you can have your own way of doing this wherever you want to keep it, but you should have some rubric, some set of rules that help you dictate which things go in which place. If you don't do that, what'll happen is the people that are most powerful in the room will always make their things the most important. They have things they want to talk about. And then you might as well not be ranking at all. It's just whoever's got the biggest voice is going to win. So what I really want you to do is be able to start thinking about it. And ultimately, your team should, when they create issues, have some thought about whether it belongs in a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 category. And I have slightly different numbers or different meanings depending on whether I'm in a weekly meeting or in a quarterly meeting. So let's go over that here. So 5s in my quarterly meetings, these are typically things that we call key topics. This is things we have to talk about before we set rocks. Hey guys, we can't even figure out which rocks to go do until we get this sorted out, right? Are we a SaaS company or are we a painting company? That's would be non-classic thing, but like we've got something ahead of us. We're going to go this way or this way, and we're going to have different rocks one way or the other. That's a reason to make it a key topic. We have to sort this out, come to some alignment before we know which things to go work on this quarter. So that would be a key topic, and we'd make it a 5. In the weekly meeting, these would be emergency issues. Things like, guys, we absolutely have to talk about these today. And hopefully you don't have a lot of fives in your weekly meetings, but you've got to leave a place for that. Like, hey, I'm going to make it a 5 because we've got to talk about it today. Something's on fire. We're going to lose a client. Many of the things that become 5s might be something that you actually say, okay, I can't wait for the weekly meeting. I gotta deal with this right now. Urgent, important things. I'm not telling you should not do that, but I want to give you that next step down. If it's not something that we have to deal with today during the week, we can wait to the weekly meeting. That's great. Just make it a 5. All right, because the less we stop everyone else down to deal with our issues, the better. That'll everyone will benefit from that. Now, 4s, I think it's a little bit more similar between weekly and quarterly and annual planning. 4s, 4s in the quarterly annual are rock candidates. These are things that whoever owns the issue, and issues like everything else in our system has an owner. Whoever the owner is saying, I think this should be a rock. Not necessarily a rock for me. We're going to talk about that, and we as part of getting to the solve. The team together will turn it into a rock, but you're going to present why this is important. And that's, in 90, we have a description section, all your supporting documents as to why this is an important thing. You can cram them all in there. You can attach things, but that's a great way to start gathering together your thoughts on why this should be a rock, should be one of the things we put our time, energy, and resources into this next quarter. And then at our weekly meetings, we like to have 4s be the things that are getting in the way of rocks, right? So if once we've dealt with the emergencies, hopefully there are none, we should deal with the things that are getting in the way of our rocks, because nothing's more important than making sure our rocks are moving forward, unless it's an emergency. And let me be clear too, emergencies might be things we find as we're going through our 5-minute sections in our weekly meeting. Those are like looking at our scorecards, looking at our to-dos, thinking about our announcements to the other teams or the things coming in. Any of those things might generate an emergency, right? In terms of that weekly meeting, and because we don't have time to work on rocks if our numbers are collapsing, right? So that might be an emergency as well. Hey, all of our advanced orders have fallen off. I've got clients where this happened. Like our pipeline is collapsed. Okay, that's a 5, my friend. Let's talk about that. That's the most important thing. Whatever we thought we were building and fixing yesterday, if our pipeline collapses, then we probably don't have time for that right now. So that becomes an emergency, and that should take our immediate attention. But if that's not happening, if we're relatively okay with all those sweeping through all the things that are important standard work questions gone, then we want to work on our rocks, make sure our rocks are moving forward. Then our 3s, if we're on the quarterly, these are things we have to discuss that day. So there's issue solving time, there's item solving time inside the quarterly or annual meeting agenda. And that would be a time where we go through our RDR or IDS or CDS process. And so anything we should talk about today, we should understand it. Those things, the solves, by the way, might be a rock. They might be a to-do. They might be a decision that have to be made. But we're going to place it there just so we make sure we talk about it today. Quite often, it's a great place to, I'm not sure if it's a rock yet. I'm not sure how I would solve it, but I think it might become a rock. Make it a 3. 3 is a great place for that. And then in the weekly meeting, if the important non-rock issues become 3s, right? So once I've gotten rid of my emergencies and I got the things that are getting away with my rocks, then the next tranche of things are going to be my non-rock issues, my most important ones. Now 2s are, in all honesty, in our quarterly annual planning, 2s are things if we will discuss if there's time, and quite often there isn't time. Unless you get really good at this, you may not have time, but we like to have the bucket to put it in case you're like, hey, I would love to talk about it right now, but I don't necessarily have all the answers yet. I don't know if we're going to have time, so let's make it a 2. On the weekly meetings, pretty much the same thing goes, where we rarely get to our 2s. So if you really need to talk about it, if something's really waiting for it, then make it a 3. Or if it's waiting for it and it's a rock, and it's a 4. See how that works? It's okay to make things 2s, and it's okay to say, I really want to talk about this, but if there's other stuff, let's get there. I'm not saying you never get to the 2s, but I'm just saying we don't often get to them, because good, healthy teams tend to find more and more things that have higher priority. That's just my observation. And then 1s are things that are not yet. Certainly in the quarterly and annual planning, that just means that we're not going to get to it, but just means we're not getting to it this quarter. It's for a future quarter. Is it next quarter? I don't know. We're going to make that decision at the next quarterly, but it's the future. And then during the quarter, when we're doing our weekly meetings, the ones are things that, hey, I want to make sure I talk about it this quarter, but I'm not ready to talk about it yet. Typically, that would be the reason you'd make it a 1. Hey, I want to put on the list so I'm keeping track of it. When I'm preparing for the meeting, I'm looking at my issues that I've got on the thing to make sure I've got the right stuff in there, and I'm going to load it up with stuff that I need to that support my conversation or my question or whatever it might be. And quite often the 1s and sometimes the 2s are the things that, a week or 2 before the quarterly, we're just going to move them to long-term issues because obviously not happening this quarter. So those are the 5 numbers. Now you can come up with your own rubric, and over time, eventually, when you have your own operating system, when you are in that, when you've already hit scale and you are very successful, I promise you will have your own nuance around these things. But start here so everyone can learn these things. Now let me talk through this issue solving process. This is something it is a major problem in all meetings where we don't necessarily get to resolution. So the whole idea is anything that's an issue, we want to get to a place where we're resolving it in some way, where we're taking action on it, taking a decision and then taking action on it. So what we want to do is follow this process. When we raise an issue, because every issue has someone who owns it, the person that owns it is raising the issue. And we should be able to answer some questions about what we're actually trying to solve for. And the key here is that we want everyone in the room to be really clear on what we're talking about. Just take it for granted. No one can actually can participate until they know what the real problem is. What are you really solving for? And quite often we're not communicating clearly. It might be so clear to me what the problem is here that I'm going to call the issue something. I'm going to say, well, I just don't think that this should ever happen. And then you can ask questions, clarifying questions. Like, what do you mean? Why do you mean it should never happen? Like it should rarely happen, or when it happens, that means something was trying to do something bad. No. I mean, working it out so we all know what we're really talking about, because I want to make sure we're solving the right problem. So consider all the questions until everyone's crystal clear. And then we open it for discussion. And as you're starting this, by the way, I want you to actually call these sections by their name. All right, so we've raised the issue. Jim has raised the issue. He really wants to understand why we never serve blueberry pie in the cafeteria. Jim, what's really the issue here? Do you like blueberry pie? I do. I think blueberry pie is superior pie. But you don't love me if you don't have blueberry pie. You don't think we love you. Okay. Is there another way for us to just demonstrate our love without serving blueberry pie? So on and so forth. And then the discussion issue, what I want to be clear about this is anyone and everyone that can should share their experiences and data. These are the things we want to offer up for discussion. Anything that's going to help us get to a place where we can solve the problem. What can I contribute that helps us understand a good path to resolving this issue? Well, in the past, we haven't had pie because these people were allergic to pie. Maybe we don't have anyone left that's allergic to pie. Maybe we can actually add pie. Right. So that would be adding the history, the experiences that we have that might help us resolve the issue is everyone's job at this point. And you should be brief and do everything you can to advance the conversation to get to understanding. And once we have that discussion, when everyone's offered everything they can offer, then we offer resolutions for this. And our whoever is facilitating the meeting, is really on them to kind of pull that out of people. Does anyone see a potential resolution in the things that have been offered here? And quite often, it's either going to be we're going to make a decision. Hey, everybody, are we okay having pie in the cafeteria again? And someone says, well, no, we should go make sure that we don't have any people with allergies with it. Okay, that's a to-do. Someone take the to-do to go back, find out if anyone's allergic to pie. If no one's allergic to pie, then we'll decide what it is. Come back to the next meeting with information on pie allergies. That would be a to-do. And sometimes we'd say, you know what? And this is true whether we're in the quarterly meeting or the weekly meeting. Somebody's like, you know what? We should do something about that, but that's really pretty big. That's a big problem we should go solve. It's going to take more than just asking everybody if they're allergic to pie. We're going to actually have to do some work on that. And in that case, it might become a rock. And then you decide whether, if you're at the quarterly, is it a rock for this quarter or a future quarter? And if it's during the quarter, is it a rock that can wait for next quarter, or do we have to add this rock? And if so, the question is, do we need to take something off the menu for the day, for this quarter. Is someone's going to work on this? They're going to own it. Do they have room for another rock in their rock list or not? And that would be, and ultimately, anything we don't get to, once again, is going to carry over for the future. But at least we will have solved and made them go away. We got the best chance of making things go away at this. All right, so that's my short, maybe not so short, a description of what it is to solve issues within organizations using this structure. And hopefully, you'll have better meetings now. Bye now.